Christian Espinosa transitioned from being a cybersecurity engineer to the CEO of his own company, driven by his passion for tackling complex problems. He has seen the cybersecurity landscape evolve, with businesses now facing sophisticated threats and the need for strong security cultures. In this episode, you will learn about the evolving challenges in cybersecurity and how you can effectively address them. Also, Christian shares valuable lessons from his life journey, such as his approach to balancing work with adventurous pursuits, what it's like to sell a business, and gives advice to established and aspiring entrepreneurs.
In the early days, when I was in the military, we were trying to protect classified data from adversaries. Now, today, it's very lucrative to be a cyber criminal. So the motivation is not, there's still obviously nation state actors trying to steal classified data, but it's a new way of making money for a lot of people, cybercrime. And it's very lucrative with ransomware, selling data on the black market, stealing credit card information. You know, it's very lucrative, and it's very hard to get caught if you do it right. It's this ethical dilemma. Sometimes I get upset about the industry. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go become a black hat hacker. I'll make a lot more money. It'll be a lot of fun, but I might get caught. But I like risk. But you know, I'm an ethical hacker, so I haven't stepped over to the dark side and done that. But a lot of traditional mobsters and traditional gangs and things have migrated to cybercrime because they can do it from wherever, and you have a lot more targets because it's worldwide.
And so, you know, back in the 90s, back in the early 2000s, people are starting to get computers. So people are becoming more online. You know, AOL is a worldwide company, but, you know, it's an American type of company. And what I'm trying to kind of understand here is from the days of, let's say, Trojan horse viruses and all that kind of stuff, where are we now seeing more of the kind of cyber threats happening? Are they like localized to the computer? Are they always kind of, you know, when I say cloud-based, I mean like website-based, hacking into, you know, data centers and that kind of thing?
We still have the same types of strains of malware or malicious software. I think the delivery mechanism is a lot different now because, like you mentioned, back in the old days with AOL, you had a computer. Now we have mobile devices, we have IoT devices, we have smart homes, we have TVs that are connected to the internet. So there's a lot more ways malicious software can get into an environment. Like my cousin, for instance, has, he used to live in Denver, and when I was over at his house, I scanned his internal environment, and he had 49 devices on his internal network. That's 49 ways a criminal can get into your environment. And some of these devices are connected to the cloud all the time. So somebody can break into the cloud, they can pivot from the cloud and go to a device in your home, and then from there go to the other 48 devices. And pretty soon his Alexa and everything else is just, you know, compromised. So I think there's a lot more ways people can get into our environments. And from a consumer's perspective, a lot of us don't know what's in our own environment. We just have set things up over the years. Our children may have brought something in. And I think it's important to know yourself before you can defend your own self, because each of those devices needs to be updated on a continuous basis. And they also need to be configured properly. And if you have 49 devices like my cousin, that's a lot of things to maintain, and a lot of things to make sure they're updated, and a lot of things to make sure they're configured properly. And I doubt he's done that because he's not a cybersecurity professional.
Yeah. And this is something that a lot of businesses are facing nowadays because, you know, I would say a high percentage, if it's not 60 plus, it might be 70+% of businesses are all computer based, all based in the box, in the computer. And it's like you said, they're attacking on these things, they're attacking on this software. They've got lots of devices, and to a hacker, as soon as they can get admin privileges, they're in. You know, they're having a great time. They can access what they need to, do whatever they want to do. So for a business owner, what should their kind of awareness of cybersecurity be, and how can we kind of minimize our chances of facing a cybersecurity attack?
So I think as a business owner, you should focus on the basics, like the top 5 things for cybersecurity. From my experience, a lot of people try to do way too many things, and they do them all marginally versus 100%. And if you know thyself, like know your devices on your network, that's like step one. And then patch your systems and because you have to know the devices first in order to patch them and make sure they're configured properly. If you do some of these things that seem basic, but they're very fundamental and often skipped, these things would prevent most of the attacks. Simple things such as knowing your environment, making sure your items are configured properly, patching and updating your systems, all of them. Those are very simple things to do, but they're often overlooked. And people think they need to buy a new piece of technology or a new firewall or spam filter or something at the expense of doing those basic things I just mentioned.
Yeah. And you've written a fair few books on this topic. And one of your books is called The Smartest Person in the Room, which is about the root cause of cybersecurity issues and solutions for, dealing with cybersecurity. What made you write this book?
I wrote that book because my first cybersecurity business I had, when I looked at most of the problems, like 99% of them, the problems with my clients, the problems internally, they were because my staff, my very highly rationally intelligent staff, lacked emotional intelligence and lacked people skills. And I realized that in cybersecurity, there's a certain type of personality drawn to the industry, and it's a personality type that wants to be, quote, smarter than other people. And if you're always trying to be smarter than someone, you're going to talk over their heads because you're going to feel significant that they don't understand you. You're going to look for an opportunity to interrupt a coworker and tell them they don't know what they're talking about, and that doesn't go well in a business. So I worked to fix that challenge in my company, and what worked is what I wrote about in the book.
And it's one of those things as well where cybersecurity, we think it's all in the machine where the kind of risks and fail points are, but it's actually the people. The people are easier to hack than the actual machines. You send someone a file and you call it cute dog pics, they might download it, open it up, and then all of a sudden, that person's now into your mainframe or into your system and all that kind of stuff. And so realistically, I'm assuming here that the mission for cybersecurity professionals is to teach other people those skills that allow them to operate in the digital space with a lot more intelligence, as opposed to be kind of talked down to and told, oh, this is how you do it because this is just how you do it. It's teaching people how to think how a cybersecurity professional thinks.
Yeah, that's right. I think that is a challenge in our industry. We want to just talk over people's heads, and then we wonder why nobody understands us. We want to talk in technical jargon, and then we wonder why the board of directors didn't give us a cybersecurity budget. It's because we didn't relate it to the business risk at all, or an ROI or any business terms. And yeah, I think that's a big challenge. If we adopt our mindset that we are going to explain things in a tangible manner where it resonates with people, I think we would have more people that are better equipped to defend themselves against cyber attacks and to protect themselves and prevent it from even occurring.
And so you had a career in the military, you had a career kind of in the tech space, and now you're an entrepreneur, business owner. How long have you been doing that for?
I did freelance work for about 5 years, and then I got bored with that. I was making a lot of money, taking a lot of time off, but I felt like I wasn't growing. It just became too kind of simple. So I thought a way to grow would be to start a business and hire people, because working with people, trying to scale a business is sort of forced personal development. Entrepreneurship, in my mind, is really personal development at a hyper level focused around business, because if you don't develop personally, your business is going to fail. So I did that, and I sold that first business after 5 years, and now I've started another business, Blue Goat Cyber. It's my second cybersecurity business, and I'm working to scale this one as quickly as possible. And our focus is on medical device cybersecurity.
I'm going to get to the medical device cybersecurity stuff because I actually find that quite interesting, but it would be criminal of me not to ask you about the process of scaling, maintaining and then selling that first business. I wonder if you can kind of talk me through the timelines and trials and tribulations of growing, scaling, and then selling a business?
So I started that business on paper in 2014. I really didn't start working in it until 2015. And I made all the mistakes you could possibly make in a business, I think. I'd have a tendency to just jump into something and figure it out. And I thought, everybody needs cybersecurity. I'm going to start a cybersecurity business, and customers and prospects will just start knocking at my door. It did not happen that way. And I tried to offer too many things to too many people. So when it really started working is when I niched it down and focused on medical device cybersecurity. I focused my previous company on that too. Then our messaging was a lot clearer. We understood our target addressable market a lot better. And we were able to specialize in something that was unique and more of a blue ocean strategy. So it was a journey, a very challenging journey for me in my first company, because I didn't have investors, invested my personal money, and I basically put all of my money in the company. And there was, a couple periods where I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make payroll. And, I was like, my back was against the wall and I'm trying to figure things out. And I'm like a couple times like laying on the floor, kind of in the fetal position, thinking like, what the hell am I going to do? But I figured things out. It forces you to be very resourceful when you have a company and you have employees that depend on you to provide their salary. I made a lot of mistakes, and it was a difficult journey. A lot of people think you get into business like as an entrepreneur to make a lot of money, and that can come. I made money on my exit, but I also was the poorest I've ever been when I owned my own business, and I was working 5 to 9 every day, including the weekends, instead of 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hard part, right? Online nowadays, they say, look, make $10,000 in your first month and you're going to be rich and riding around in a Lamborghini. But the realistic part of it is you are making loads of money and then having to, quote unquote, give it away in salaries and in, costs and this and that. And then you go to yourself, gosh, I'm not making any money here. I'm working more than I ever have before, but I'm not making any money. And, I guess for most people, it's either become profitable and then give yourself a job within the business, pay yourself a salary, or in your case, have an exit. And especially when you're growing building a business in a field such as, the pharma space or the medical space, there's always money floating around there. There's always acquisitions that want to be made, whether it's by big insurance companies or by other pharmaceutical companies. There's always money floating around there. And, to me, it's quite interesting that you decided to niche down on medical devices, because people do not think about the implications of hacking into medical devices. People really, really don't think that, if you hack into an X-ray machine or an MRI machine, the implications of what can happen. And a lot of these machines are running on, very old versions of Windows and all kinds of softwares that are very outdated and have no form of protection, but they're hooked up to the internet by an Ethernet cord. And it's like, to protect these things is, not even in people's minds, but the implications can be, out of this world. I wonder if you could talk to me about the kind of, the expert opinion on what cybersecurity looks like around medical devices.
It's evolving in the right direction. It's been a massive challenge. Even implantables like pacemakers have been hacked. And the vice president in the U.S., Dick Cheney, a long time ago, removed his pacemaker because there were threats that someone was going to hack into it wirelessly and cause it to shock his heart over and over and over and kill him. So we've gotten a lot better. In the U.S., the FDA, and in Europe, the EU MDR just came out with recent guidance to force medical devices to have a lot more stringent cybersecurity built into them. And that's been good for my business, because everyone needs the devices to be scrutinized from a cybersecurity perspective and make sure the risk is reduced to an acceptable level. But yeah, in the past and even today, there's still a lot of vulnerable medical devices. And it's things that we don't even think about often. Like, we worked on a device that helped with LASIK surgery. When you have LASIK surgery, your eye doesn't stay still, it moves. So there's an algorithm and a technology that tracks the movement of your eye, and the laser cuts with the movement of your eye. that device was hackable. And if I were able to change the algorithm, now the lasers can cut your eye open in all kinds of random places, for instance. We don't think about things like that, or even implantables or drug infusion pumps. But all these things have been compromised at some point.
Yeah, and you have a methodology around this that you call the secure methodology. Talk to me about the secure methodology and, what that looks like for business owners, for medical spaces, all that kind of stuff. Like, how do we think in a secure way?
Yeah, the secure methodology is a 7-step methodology I wrote about in my first book, The Smartest Person in the Room. The whole idea behind me calling it the secure methodology, I think a lot of the challenges we have in society, in our careers, in our relationships, are because we're insecure about things. So my view is if you can become secure with yourself, your inner world becomes more secure, then your outer world will become more secure in whatever you do. And in the 7 steps, I can briefly go over the 7 steps if you'd like. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the first step is awareness. I think in anything we have to be aware and primarily self-aware. With awareness, I talk about neurolinguistic programming a fair amount in my book because our brains are very programmatic. We like to think they're not. We're very much like computers. When there's a stimulus or trigger, we automatically run that program, and pretty soon it's already executed. From an awareness perspective, if that program we run is not serving us, like if somebody asks us a question, we automatically get defensive, that's our program, and we get an argument every single time, maybe we should run a different program and change that default behavior to new behavior. And that's very difficult to do. It's a simple concept, but it's not easy to implement. So that's from an awareness perspective, to have that awareness of yourself. And then the second step is mindset. Our brains are not hardwired. Some people believe they are, which is a fixed mindset. It's when you think, if you have a fixed mindset, that you're just the way you are. You can't change. And a growth mindset means we believe in neuroplasticity, that we can change our brain. We can rewire our brain and learn new things and change our default behavior. And that's the growth mindset. So I think it's important to adopt a growth mindset. And the third step is acknowledgement. As a leader, I think it's important to acknowledge what you want more of, the behavior you want more of. I remember this study that had 2 signs. There's like a wet floor, and one of the signs says, caution, wet floor, don't slip. The other sign said, caution, wet floor, walk carefully. And the sign where less people fell was the one that said, walk carefully. So again, we want to put the behavior out there that we want more of. And in cybersecurity and other industries, we often acknowledge the mistakes versus the things that people got right. And as a cybersecurity expert, if you're defending an environment, you may have 1,000 things you have to get right. If you miss one, the criminal may get in there. But we should reward them for getting the 999 right versus penalize them for getting the one wrong. And that's something I've had a challenge with in my life is I have had a super hard time acknowledging myself. And I realize if I can't acknowledge myself for doing super hard things, I'm not going to be able to acknowledge my staff. So I've had to really work on that. As example, I remember in 2005, I went to the Ironman World Championship in Hawaii. I went there as a spectator. I stood under the finish line before the race, had someone take a picture of me. I still have this picture. And I told myself I'm going to do this race someday. In 2015, like 10 years later, I actually crossed the finish line. And instead of it was something that took me 10 freaking years to do, but instead of like patting myself on the back, I was automatically thinking about the next big thing to accomplish. I never once took a second to acknowledge what I did over a 10-year period. So that was a time of reflection for me and made me realize if I'm not acknowledging myself, I'm probably not acknowledging my staff or my spouse or my family or anybody else around me. And then step 4 is communication. With communication, I'm a proponent that the meaning of communication is the response you get. So when you're communicating with someone, if they're not understanding you, the ownership shifts back to you to alter how you communicate. And in cybersecurity, this is a big problem. People talk over someone's head and they'll say, well, they just don't get it. The whole concept is, the ownership should be on you to alter your communication in a way they do receive it, the way they do get it. That's the whole point. And like if you're not getting the budget that you want, for instance, maybe you're not communicating it in the right way. And then step 5 is monotasking. Monotasking is the opposite of multitasking. It's doing one thing with like concentrated effort for an extended period of time. Could be an hour, could be 50 minutes, could be an hour and a half, however you want to break your day up into blocks of time. That's all you do. And with me, when I monotask, I put blocks of time on my calendar. And that's all I do during that block of time. So if my block of time is to write a chapter for my book or brainstorm, the next topic of the book, that's all I do. I don't check email. I don't answer my phone. I just do that one thing, which makes me way more productive. Because if I bounce back and forth between tasks with multitasking, that's called context switching, you'll get things mixed up and you'll be inefficient. Monotasking makes you productive and multitasking makes you busy. Monotasking also helps with being present, because if I'm monotasking when I'm having a conversation, the person I'm with is going to feel appreciated and understood. If I'm checking my phone the whole time, the person is not going to feel that great who I'm communicating with or having dinner with. So that's monotasking. The next step is empathy, which I think we have a big problem with empathy today because of all the division. There's this like movement to like break people up into groups. There's the pro-vaccine people, the anti-vaccine people. The U.S. you have the Democrats, the Republicans, the pro-gun, anti-gun. There's like all this like division of everything, and it's hard to be empathetic with your fellow human being if you see all this division, because you see them separate from another human being almost. You see them as like a different group. With me, an example of this is 2 years ago, I had blood clots in my left leg. I had 6 of them. I was having problems like walking. So a friend of mine told me to go to the doctor, and I don't like to go to the doctor, but I went. And the doctor came out and said, you've got blood clots. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? He says, well, you got 6 in your left leg. And I'm like, okay, like what does that mean? And he says, well, it means you can die or have a stroke at any moment. And I was alone in the hospital, and I kind of like freaked out about it because I'm thinking like my whole life is like flashing through my head. And I'm thinking like, man, did I live a good life? Was I nice? Was I loving? Was I caring? Was I a good person? And I started crying, and he was still there. This all happened like super quickly, right? And he noticed me like crying, and I was like silently crying, like tears rolling down my face. And he said something I'll never forget. He said, oh, don't worry about it. I see this all the time. And it actually like pissed me off. I'm like, you know what? I don't see this all the time. This is a first for me. And I think he was trying to be empathetic, but again, that division, he was looking at it from, I'm the doctor, this is the patient. It's a divide versus, I just told a fellow human being something like pretty devastating, that he could die or have a stroke at any moment. Maybe I could approach that a little bit differently. And then the final step is Kaizen. Kaizen is a Japanese word that means continuous and never-ending improvement. The whole idea is as long as we're making incremental progress, that's what matters. A lot of people give up on something because they can't master it in a day or two. That's not the point. The point is to have the courage to take the first step and make the small improvements. I was talking to someone not too long ago, and they said, if you do something for 15 minutes a day, you will learn that thing, like such as learning how to play the guitar, better than 99.9% of the people on the planet. And that's just 15 minutes a day. And I started adding that up, and I was like, yeah, that is correct. But we often think, if we don't master it in the first 3 days, we give up. As long as we're making improvement, that's what matters. And those are the 7 steps.
Yeah. And you said in the beginning of our conversation that, being an entrepreneur is actually about constant kind of personal development. If you're not personally developing yourself, if you're not growing, then your business won't grow. And that really shows in those kind of 7 key points that you have there, that you kind of sat down and gone, what are the areas I need to be focusing on in order to be constantly improving? And it, leads into that Kaizen thing you were saying.
Yeah.
But for me, it also leads into another book you've written, which is about appreciating the smaller moments in life, and also kind of, I guess the best way to put it is being more present. The title of the book even gave me that. It's The In-Between Life in Micro, I think it's called, if I'm correct. So talk to me about kind of being more present and appreciating the small moments, and how people can benefit from doing that in their life.
So the book is a focused memoir on where I've got things right and where I've got things wrong in my life. And I do a lot of reflection. So I analyze my life quite a bit and try to improve. So I went over that scenario with Ironman triathlon briefly, and finishing the world championship in 2015. So as soon as I finished, I was automatically thinking about the next big thing, the next macro thing. What I should have realized is, between where I am and that next big macro thing is this micro moment right in front of me, crossing the finish line. I didn't appreciate crossing the finish line at all. I just was automatically thinking about the next thing. And the book is my journey of kind of unraveling these moments in my life where I've been too focused or too hyper-focused on this big dream or big goal, where I've missed things right in front of me. Like, didn't pay enough attention to a relationship, and the relationship fell apart. Like, didn't pay attention to my health, and I had health problems. Didn't pay attention to my bank account, and I, ended up with no money. It's like, it's important to go after these big things, but it's also important to have the balance. And I think life ultimately is a collection of like how we feel on a per minute basis. And if we're always looking in the distance for this big goal and not appreciating things right in front of us, or not showing up with intention and adding value, then we're just chasing something over and over and over and never really feeling fulfilled. And I've done that in the past, and it's cost me a lot. And I've got some things right too. But that's what the book is about, really balancing being in the moment, the micro moment right in front of us, while also going after something macro. And the other thing is, if we are aware and show up with intention in the micro moment, the circumstances don't matter as much. Like, even if I go out to dinner with my girlfriend, let's say, and I say, my intention is for us to have a great time. That is the vision of this seemingly small thing. If the waiter spills like water on me or gets the order messed up, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to let the circumstances like override the vision of having a great time. And I think that's important as well in these micro moments, to have that intention.
And also, part of being an entrepreneur or a business owner is to hire a team of people that think like you, operate like you, and have the kind of same mindset as you. So how do you instill these qualities that you've built and kind of instilled into your life? How do you bring those into your teams and into your leadership teams?
So I have a set of core values that I developed. I realized also with my first company that the biggest challenges I had with staff members, people I brought into the company, where they didn't fit my core values. As an example, communication is one of the core values. So, like, listen carefully, respond clearly was one of my core values. If people were jumping to assumptions, they didn't actually listen to what was being said and didn't respond in a succinct manner, it would drive me crazy. So then I came up with these core values. And I have 7 of them, and I started making hiring decisions based on core value alignment. And not everybody was willing to adopt the core values, so I had to let some people go. They simply wanted to have a fixed mindset. For instance, like, one of my core values is about a growth mindset. I had one individual that said he's just the way he is. He's not good with people. There's nothing he can do about it, and he was rude to a lot of people and caused me to lose some clients because he upset them and cussed in front of them and things. And he said he couldn't change. He's just the way he is. So, he went out the door because that's not who I wanted in my company. And before that, I used to think that as a leader, I should be able to change people. I should be able to influence them enough, like that guy, to get him to change. But I realized painfully, it took me a long time to realize this after a lot of struggles, that I realized not everyone wants to change. It doesn't matter how much I can, from the outside the box, see the glass ceiling they're under. If they don't want to change, there's nothing I can do about it. And one of my core values is ownership as well. So I had to kind of really come to terms with that I have to let this particular thing go, because if somebody won't meet me halfway, they're not going to change. So I worked hard to establish that culture in my company, and I have it now in my company. And I'm very guarded about who I bring on to the company. I don't want to. One bad apple will bring a company down. The culture. One toxic person it'll spread. So I'm very careful about that.
And as well, you can use these kind of core values to define what success looks like in your business. So I'm wondering if you can talk to me about what success looks like for you and what success looks like for you in your business as well.
Success for me is, right now at this state of my life, I think it changes over the years, is to feel like I've had a positive impact. And that's why I write books. That's why I speak. That's why I do podcasts. To feel like I've made a difference in someone's life. And in my company, it's the same thing. I hire people in the company. I mentor them. I want people to ultimately be better after they've had an interaction with me than before. And that's how I measure success. So if someone works for my company, they want to become an entrepreneur later. They learn a lot from me. They go start a business and they kill it. That is success to me, because I've helped them on their journey of who they want to become. Or I've kind of removed the blocks that was holding them back from stepping into their calling. Yeah, that's how I define success.
Yeah, I think being a mission-driven person or a mission-driven entrepreneur is the best way to be. If you have a goal, which is, I want to help people, or once people have interacted with me, their life is, 1% better or 2% better, then that's what's going to keep you going even when times are tough. And, as the kind of person you are, you sound very driven. You sound like you've got a big drive for things. And I'm just wondering for you, why do you do these things? Why do you run Ironmans? Why would you start a business after exiting a business? What is constantly driving you to keep doing these things? And don't say insanity, because every entrepreneur is a little bit insane, apparently.
I guess I'm a little bit crazy. I think most entrepreneurs are. And someone asked me once, when is enough enough? And I thought about that, and I said never, not until I die, because I like doing these things because it forces me to grow, ultimately. I had an exit from the last company. It was a decent amount of money, but I sold the company for stock, and the stock went from $5.50 down to 10 cents before I could sell it all. So it was, every day I was watching the money just to fly out of the bank account or out of my, a brokerage account. But when I left the parent company, I tried to just relax I think I did it for 2, maybe 3 months. I traveled around. I watched, my favorite band, Nightwish, in the U.S. I think I saw them 8 times, just flying around the U.S. like a groupie. Drove up and down the Pacific Coast Highway in California. Went to Hawaii for a while, and bought an RV. Did the RV thing for a while, and I got to the point I was thinking, man, I'm not contributing to society. I think at this point in my life, the contribution and the drive to contribute outweighs just having fun and drinking Mai Tais on the beach. And I did that for a while, thinking, okay, can I even do this for an extended period of time, relax, as most people would call relaxing, and I couldn't do it. So I decided, after talking to a friend of mine, he's like, you know, you've got all this experience with business and with cybersecurity. Why don't you start a new cybersecurity business? And that's what I did. And I'm working to scale it right now. And I got a pretty decent sized team. I got some pretty ambitious goals. And I'm trying to capitalize on, all the dumb tax I paid in the first business and not make the same mistakes in this one. And then also try to utilize my talent to help medical devices become secure, because there's a lot of advances in healthcare, and I would hate for those advances to be rolled back because of unsecure medical devices that are hacked into. Like, even for me, when I got diagnosed with those blood clots, if they didn't have the technology to diagnose me pretty quickly, I may not be here right now. So I'm definitely a proponent of advancing healthcare.
Okay, so what's driving you is the fact that you just can't rest. Even if you wanted to try rest, the common man's idea of rest is not your idea of rest, which is, a fantastic space to be in, I guess. So the space of cybersecurity, like you said, is constantly evolving, constantly changing. But it also sounds like you do a lot of learning in the business space. It seems like you are always learning new things, reading things, or listening to podcasts, because you've mentioned a few things here. You've mentioned growth mindset. You've mentioned blue ocean strategy. You've mentioned that you're constantly in a state of self-development. Kaizen, that's not a phrase that people come across if they're not looking for these things. Mm-hmm. And I wondered for you, where do you do most of your learning and how do you do it?
A lot of the learning I do just by trial and error. So then that's, I pay the price for some of that. I gone to a lot of personal development events. I've been to like Tony Robbins events. I've been to business events. I've been to coaching events. I have a coach as well that I speak with once every couple weeks. So I'm always interested in getting better. I've done neurolinguistic programming training. I'm certified master neurolinguistic programming practitioner. I've done hypnotherapy. So a lot of it, I think there's the how-to, which I watch YouTube videos too. I pretty much every day, instead of watching normal TV, I watch videos on how to improve your sales or how to do SEO better, or whatever Alex Hormozy's talking about, how to build your brand and things like that. Those are more how-tos, but I think the bigger struggle, at least for me, or bigger challenge, is unraveling myself to become a better version of myself. Because I think as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, if we don't evolve, our business will not evolve. Our business is a reflection of us. And this happens to a lot of people. They can get the business to $1 million, but they can't get it to 3. Or they can get it to 3, but they can't get it to 10. It's a different type of person that has to do different things to get it to the next level, which is why I focused a lot on doing things to really understand myself better and to improve myself.
I guess it also, when you're scaling a business like you are, it's also about trying to get yourself out of the day-to-day as much as possible, and doing that whole idea of working on the business, not in the business. And especially if you plan to sell it, you don't want to, have to stay in the business overly long. You want to be able to wrap it up nicely for someone else and go, here you go, here's my business. You can have that. I'll have some money, please and thank you. So,
Yeah.
With you saying that you have to kind of work on yourself and improve yourself, it shows in what you do. It shows in how you scale and how you grow. And I'm wondering how you kind of bring that into your business when you're scaling and growing your business, all the learnings and teachings you do, because you're not really going to be going in hands-on in the Google analytics and working on stuff like that. But how do you take what you're learning and pass it on to the people that are actually doing the thing that you're paying to do the thing?
Yeah, that's where the mentorship comes into play, because I'm always trying to get myself out of the business so I can work on the business, as you said. If you're in the business, it's hard to sell the business. It's hard to do a lot of things, and you're too tactical versus strategical. So I think it's important to be able to work on the business, and the only way I can do that is by getting my team, a few core people in my team, to understand how I think, how I make decisions, and to have the same core values as I do, and to grow. And I also have to realize, because in my first business, I made this mistake I think I made every mistake. Not everybody's going to be able to grow with the business. As much as some people say they want to grow, they're not willing to do the things necessary. They're uncomfortable to make that growth or that leap or the next step. So right now with this business, with Blue Goat Cyber, I've got two people, one technical person, one project management and salesperson that I've been mentoring, and I'm able to step out of the business some now even. So if there's a discovery meeting with a client, I used to be in every one of them. Now I can just trust that they know how to do it because they've been in enough with me. I've spent a lot of time training them and mentoring them, and I'm able to slowly, pull back from the business, which is the goal, at least for me. I don't want to be an owner operator. Some people want to do that, but that is not my goal. I want to be an owner, not the operator. And then if I'm the owner, I can do other things and just check in with the business every now and then.
Yeah. I mean, as well, the more you invest in your employees is the more valuable they feel. They feel like they can't go anywhere else because they go, oh, I'm always learning here. I'm always growing. I get more responsibilities. And, obviously a good boss will see that you're taking on more responsibilities. You're taking more off my plate. Here is, the one reward I can give you, which is more money or more freedom or whatever else you want it to be. And, I think a lot of business owners really do lack the key fundamental understanding of what employees want. Not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but people definitely want to be constantly learning, constantly developing. And if they don't, then they're not the right person for your business, especially when you're trying to grow and scale. The type of people that can keep the business running are not the same people that will help you to grow and scale a business, is from what I understand.
Yeah, that's right. And you need like both types of people, and that's fine. Some people want to do their job and go home and not think about it. And then some people constantly think about how they can, grow their division or cut their expenses or, hire the next new person that will help their team. And you need a combination of both people. And, you have to be strategic about the team and who's, aligned with you to take over the business though. And that's always something you have to keep an eye on. And I prefer, wherever possible to grow people internally. Like my last company, I had an intern that worked for free for a while, but was super passionate. And after, I think 4 years, she was the COO of the company, basically running the company for me. That is my preference, but she was able to grow. If somebody can't grow into a role, I'm not going to give them the role regardless. That means I may have to look out, outside the organization. And that's just the way it works sometimes.
Yeah. And you always find the best talent that grows within your business because they understand, the base level, the mid level, and then the upper level. And so they're managing in a way that is, not teachable to a degree because it's, something that they've kind of grown up through the business with. So for you and Blue Goat looking forward, obviously the long-term goal is to have another exit. But what are your other goals for Blue Goat, for yourself, life in general? What are the big goals that you have at the moment?
So with Blue Goat Cyber, I want to become the market leader in medical device cybersecurity. That is the goal. It's not a super crowded space. I've got the experience doing it since 2014. I've got a great team. We have a great message. We have a great process. So I think that is feasible, and that's the goal. By the time I'm 53 right now, by the time I'm 60, I want to have a certain monetary amount of money that I've made. That's just a target. And with this company, Blue Goat Cyber, I don't know if I want to sell it. If I can transition to owner and I have great people running it, maybe I just leave it like that. If I have an opportunity to do an IPO and become public, that might be an option. If I do sell it, it will not be for stock like I sold my last company because that was very painful. The stock going from like $5.50 down to 10 cents. I'm not doing that again. That was another mistake. But yeah, right now I'm hyper focused on Blue Goat Cyber. I'm getting back into training, so I may do another Ironman triathlon. It took me a while to recover from those blood clots and kind of reclaim my health. But I started running again, started doing more outdoor activities. And I'm trying to have that balance like we talked about earlier. So in a few weeks, I'm going to Monaco to watch the Formula One race. And I'm trying to like balance, how much effort I put towards the company and a little effort, having fun with my girlfriend, as well. So I don't lose my mind basically and go crazier than I already am.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And, it sounds like you have a lot of things going on, right? You've got your kind of fitness goals, you've got your financial goals, you've got your business goals, you've got your life goals, etc., etc. But there's so many different things you've got going on here. And I'm wondering, what is it about what you do that brings you the most joy?
Yeah, I've got goals in health, wealth, and relationships, the three big ones. So what brings me the most joy is progress. Progress in all three of those areas. Specifically, all three of them. In the past, I may have progressed in my business, but my relationship went the opposite way. So right now, I'm trying to keep my pulse on everything, where I'm able to move the wealth number up, make progress in there, grow my business, my health gets better, and my relationships get better. If I'm progressing in all three of those areas, I feel like I'm doing a great job, along with helping other people, succeed as well. That to me is makes me feel good about getting up every day. If I'm regressing, I don't feel so good because I made those mistakes in the past. I'm trying not to make them now. I made the mistake of only focusing on my business goals, and then my relationships suffer, and my health suffered. And at the end of the day, I was alone, in the hospital with blood clots, and I'm like, how did I get here? Well, now I know, and I'm trying not to do that again.
Where can the people find you online?
They can find me on my personal brand website, christianespinosa.com, or on my company website, bluegoatcyber.com, and I'm on pretty much all social media. My books are on Amazon as well, and Audible. They're both on Audible as well.
Thank you for listening to People Explained. New episodes come out every Monday. We would appreciate it if you gave us a review on Apple Podcasts and shared this episode with a friend.